Hey everybody, this is Kohdok here, and I know I really haven't done many reviews for a while. Part of that is that, this whole real life thing has been happening a whole lot. I've been working 2 jobs to stay afloat, and it just hasn't been easy to find the time to do these. So, I figured I'd make it up for you guys today by doing 5 reviews in one. That's right, I'm going to go over 5 different lines in this video. They're all going to be things that, didn't really do so well within the past year. Now, I'm not going to do like little side things. I'm going to do things that were put out by fairly major companies and received at least enough attention and faith that they got some kind of TV show out of it. So these are 5 big flops. Let's just get this one out of the way. Now, my Beamon Crossfire review is easily the most controversial review I've ever done. I know it caused this massive firestorm over on the Beamon wiki when I called Beamon Crossfire, the distant successor to Battle Beamon, kind of a bit derivative and bland compared to its original. And, I kind of still have that stance, and I'm sort of right about it. Everyone else felt the same way too. I mean, I know a lot of people like Beamon Crossfire, but a lot more people didn't. And it really showed, because these things went on clearance harder than Red-a-Kai, as much as it pains me to say that. I mean, this here, the Break Bomber Battlefield here, I got this brand new at Toys R Us for $7. This thing used to sell for $35. That's 80% off. It's frightening just how much this thing fell away. Because, like I said before, actually, to be honest, the original Battle Beamon didn't even do that well in the first place. It was, it was kind of weird, it was kind of hokey, but the idea of the marble launchers that shoot marbles out of their chests didn't really seem to resonate that well with an American audience the first time. But at the very least, it could make the claim that it wasn't because its show was this completely derivative garbage. Something Beamon Crossfire can't really make. I mean, Beamon Crossfire is just another one of these kid in slightly futurish times discovers a dark secret about a popular toy. That's what this is. There are so many shows like that I was actually kind of sick of it. Like I said, the original Battle Beamon is about a kid who was raised by cats who has a destiny to save this Wild West themed world where Beamon are literal weapons. It was probably too weird, but it really was a whole lot more creative than Beamon Crossfire. And it's also really a shame, because Beamon S, the sequel to Beamon Crossfire, is actually not too bad. Beamon S is about a kid named Kamon and his Beamon partner Drive Garuvern, both of which have lost their memories. Apparently, Kamon used to be some sort of important, prominent figure in the Beamon world, because there's a whole lot of action going on behind the scenes between the folks who want him to regain his memory and those who want him to stay in the dark. You know what some people might call this? Some people might call that a plot. Which is more than you can say for Beamon Crossfire. I mean, everything is so much better. There's tension between these two sides. Kamon is a far more interesting, charismatic, and enjoyable character to go around. There's mature themes such as betrayal explored as early as episode 3. It's just an all-around great show. But we're never gonna see it, because Beamon Crossfire sucks! I mean, I've heard the name like Beamon Fire Blast or something thrown around like that, but Monsuno got promised a sequel that never happened, and that's because it didn't sell very well, and Beamon sold even worse. So, odds are we're not going to see it. Now, the show that came in between Battle Beamon and Crossfire, Crash Beamon, even flopped in Japan, but I'm watching Crash Beamon, and it is a whole lot better. I mean, yeah, it's really simplified, but the characters have much more likable personalities, it's a whole lot easier to click with them, and the story is a whole lot more interesting. I mean, by episode 2, the main character of Crash Beamon is busting up this bullying ring who keeps bullying all the people who play Beamon. By episode 2, the main character of Beamon Crossfire has fired 1 shot. And the problem is, we're going to be missing out on a lot, because the Beamon S Beamon figures are actually a whole lot more interesting. The S stands for Emblem System. They have these little emblems on these characters, on their arms, and sometimes even on their feet, which you hold down to change the properties of the shot here. Like, Drive Galravern is a rapid fire power type because it can switch between the rapid fire with the emblems off and the power type with the emblems on. They also have, ta-da, modification parts that actually affect the firing pins, which was my big complaint about Crossfire because that didn't happen. I mean, now that they're dirt cheap and I've managed to get my hands on a lot of them, I mean, I can appreciate some, like Scorpion here can be fired one-handed, but it's nothing compared to the cannon arms they came out with for Drive Galravern. You strap these babies on and it changes from a rapid fire power type to a pure power type that fires with extreme force. And the best part is you can take the arms from Drive Galravern and put them on Dravice and just make him Magnum crazy powerful. I mean, it loses all of its rapid fire, but the shots become so intense that it doesn't matter. I mean, I could be wrong, it might still come out. I mean, number 1 on the list managed to come out somehow. But since this thing actually managed to bomb harder than Bay Wheels, I doubt we're going to see it, and odds are, in order to get the good stuff, you're going to have to, 1, learn Japanese, and 2, start paying those lovely import fees. So this is going to be another quick one since I've already talked about it before, but Chima is apparently still ongoing. Like I know last year, it was meant to be kind of the spiritual successor to Ninjago, but like I said, the TV show they came out with just didn't really click with people. I mean, the problem was that the show was, in its writing sense, a whole lot more juvenile than a lot of other shows that we're on right now, which, considering that Ninjago The Final Battle actually was written fairly well, and from what I've heard, the Lego movie was sensational, you just can't help but wonder, why did the Chima TV show end up so poorly written? I mean, we've got glowing examples of what this company is capable of, and then it just boggles the mind. Now, the story of Chima does improve as the episodes go on, but I don't know if I'd call it better as much as less inept. Because most of the season is spent basically digging themselves out of the hole that they wrote themselves into by episode 3. They go through all the extra trouble to make Kragger into a more sympathetic character, and they have an episode, fortunately, where Laval realizes how big a jerk he's been to everybody. In fact, one of Laval's worst moments causes probably the greatest threat that Chima has ever faced. Wow, way to break it, hero. And they actually manage to make some good tension when the wolves see an opportunity and seize power. Like I said before, I really enjoy the sets. The sets, they're lovely, they're gorgeous, they're really cleverly put together to get these animal shapes without all these big nasty pre-molded parts that I know anybody else would have done that way. And they've already come out with a sequel series that includes like scorpions, spiders, and bats as kind of these adversaries here. But, you know, the sets, they're not really as high key. There's nothing as big as like Warriors' mobile layer or anything like that. And they're actually already getting ready to put out a 3rd series that has a fire and ice theme. Oh, way to go, Lego. You've only lost to Mega Bloks at that by about 10 years. At this point, I think the Chima series is pretty much an excuse to just make a whole bunch of animal-themed Lego minifigures, which, I mean, I guess that's okay, but why don't they bring back some of the older things? Like, they could reuse the snake molds from Ninjago, or some of their older, like aquatic monster rolls, like from the Atlantis series. You know what? That's a good question. Why haven't we seen any, like, sea monsters or aquatic creatures in Chima yet? I mean, if drinking the water that's been affected by the chi is enough to make you evolve, what do you think's been happening to the stuff that lives in it? I mean, there might just off the shore be some kind of, like, super advanced, high-technology Atlantean civilization out there consisting entirely of these fish creatures that have been living and breathing in this chi-affected water. That would probably make an interesting plot. So, what is there to say about Max Steel?
Let's go Turbo!
Well, I don't really know much about Max Steel because I didn't really grow up with him, but I know he's popular in other markets, and I also know that this latest series that they came out with last year is a pretty big departure from what it was originally. The story is about Max, a teenage boy who long ago lost his father in a tragic accident. The other most common stereotype for boys' TV shows these days. Max's body creates something called turbo energy, an extremely powerful force that he cannot control. He becomes bonded to a small robot named Steel, who can not only control this energy, but can change it into super powerful suits of armor. Together they form Max Steel. Together they fight crime. No twist on that one, really. Max and Steel face all sorts of adversaries, but by far the most dastardly is a man named Darth Shredder. I mean Dread, who is addicted to turbo energy and seeks to gain control of Max in order to siphon the energy from him. Oh, and Max's mom is a cyborg ninja or something. It's actually not a bad little action show. I mean, it's formulaic, but the writers at least seem to understand what makes the formula work. Max and Steel don't really have very strong personalities aside from being, you know, the classic buddy-buddy duo thing. But, you know, because of all the nice, fast-paced action that they're able to throw around, it's really not that big a deal. Wait a minute, if Max is stuck in the suit forever, how does he go to the bathroom? On second thought, don't answer that. Which, of course, begs the question, if the show is actually not too bad, then what could the problem be? Why didn't this series sell too well? Well, I'm going to give you a few seconds. You can take a look at this toy and then try to tell me the problem. Time's up! If you said this thing has no articulation on it, you'd be right. That is the most commonly cited problem I see people say about the Max Steel figures, is because they have only typically about 5 points of articulation. This figure has even less, although then again that's because it has this gimmick where it throws the styrofoam boomerangs that actually work pretty well, but that's beside the point. There are some that don't have this gimmick that have absolutely little to no articulation at all. And seeing as Mattel is asking like $13 for these figures that have about as much articulation as the kind you find in a Happy Meal, you can see where the source of contention is. Because that's the problem. For the exact same price, I can get other figures elsewhere that have more articulation or are bigger, such as Hasbro's Titan Hero series, which is only $10 each. And that's another thing. Regarding action figures, it's very kind of un-Mattel, the way it's kind of done. I mean, this one has a bit of a more striking posture to it, but most of the other ones are just kind of the plain, regular, standing thing that you see there. And Max, the figure, he doesn't have like some kind of clever sneer or some kind of howl of rage or anything. He's just kind of meh. But considering what Mattel did in the past with like He-Man or Street Sharks or what I have here, Extreme Dinosaurs, I mean, this Extreme Dinosaurs figure has even less articulation than Max here, but take a look at this thing. This thing, rather than just a toy, it's a work of art to look at. It's got that incredible expression, the dynamism, the movement. This thing is as much an enjoyable sculpture as it is a toy, and that was really what put Mattel's action figures on the map in the past, but that's kind of been lost in this genericness of Max Steel, and that's the problem. It's really generic. I mean, it's formulaic, and the formula is done fine, but at the same time, aside from the deviation from the typical Max Steel storyline, it doesn't really take any risks, which I think hurts it a bit when it's up against some of the more daring things, such as Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Max Steel was also one of the series that was guilty of making a ninja clone. In this case, it's these top things with the ripcord launcher and the little figure on top that you have to try to knock off, just like Ninjago. And I mean, they do work okay. They have this fun little light-up gimmick with some of the deluxe ones, but honestly, these came even faster than just the regular things. These were put on sale like almost right away. I mean, they work well. It looks pretty fun with the lights on, but the high price, the lack of flexibility, and the fact that it's an obvious knockoff of Ninjago and Beyblade is what caused these to not really take off at all. Oh well, at least they work better than the Ultimate Fighting Trashy series. So yeah, for Max Steel, it's more of a case of being a poor product than it is being a poor show. I mean, the show, it's formulaic, but at least it's an enjoyable kind of formulaic. These toys here are just obviously derivative. This one, painfully so. I mean, they did make a full articulated Max Steel, but it was kind of too little too late. This one actually hurts me a little bit, because Digimon Cross Wars is actually a pretty good show. In Japanese. The story's pretty simple. One day, a kid named Taiki runs into a Digimon called Shoutmon, and he and his two friends get sucked into the digital world. Shoutmon wants to become strong in order to be able to protect the digital world and make it a safer place for everyone. Shoutmon is capable of performing a Digicross, which is a variation of Digivolution where he is able to link up and form together into stronger forms with his friends Ballistamon and Darulamon, along with the Starmons and the Pikmons to perform various weapons. However, it is only through the use of Taiki's Cross Loader that he is able to do this. Together, these characters all go to different worlds in order to gather their code crowns, which is basically the deed to that various little world there and keeps it safe from invasion from other forces.
Opposing them are the evil Bagramon and his Bagra army who want to collect the code crowns in order to, you guessed it, take over the digital world.
Of course!
So yeah, Digimon Cross Wars is actually a pretty good series that kind of takes Digivolution level out of the equation with the cross system, which means that any Digimon at any level can be any kind of power, which is a pretty revolutionary thing for the series. However, like I said before, it's good in Japanese. And that's because of the writing style. The writers of Digimon Cross Wars have what is obviously a deep love for Edo period samurai dramas and the sort of feudal era Japanese drama shows they make frequently in Japan, of course.
Of course!
And they really don't make any secret of it. It's apparent in how the story flows, the dialogue, the plot lines, even the vocabulary is all deeply inspired by this feudal Japanese mythos. So, inevitably, an English dub that they tried to make for mainstream audiences was not going to go well. Still, that's no excuse for what we got.
I miss my bunny blanket! Bunny blanket! No soup for you.
The dub for Digimon Cross Wars is a mess. It's pretty horrendously done. The characters aren't really that interesting, and a lot of the dub things are changed. I thought we were beyond this. Instead, they're cracking all sorts of weird lines that weren't in the original.
If there are other humans, we need to find them right away!
Yeah, maybe their smartphones will get reception and we can play games and stuff.
Oh my god, that one line, that one remark about the smartphones is everything wrong with today's Western entertainment. I finally figured it out. One of the huge problems with Redikai and also with like Max Steel and Chima and stuff like that is that Western writers or Western executives or somebody in charge seems to think that the most important thing about the show is to convince you that the main character is cool and hip and down with the in crowd and all those sorts of things. So that, you know, it's like, oh, we know about all the cool things like smartphones and vlogs. Yeah, Redikai's guilty of it too. And all those things, but really, it makes the characters feel really disingenuous and defensive, and they're putting up barriers, and it just comes off as like some boring adult walking into a room and saying, hey kids, I'm down with all the cool stuff. Look at how cool I am. It's really, it's shoehorned in series imported from the East, and it's like the basis of main characters for franchises made here in the West for kids. And it's really incredibly counterproductive because the whole point of a lot of these shows, the ones that are successful, tend to have a bigger emphasis on making characters, not characters who are all cool and hip and stuff, but instead making characters who have interesting stories that we want to follow. The fact that they shoehorned this into Digimon Cross Wars is just,
I mean, it also goes to show just how much these companies cared about their source material, because, I mean, it implies that these characters, who we've only recently met and don't know much about, and who were recently teleported into an alternate dimension full of monsters, have nothing interesting to talk about.
So yeah, the dub did really poorly, and as a result, the toy sales weren't very good either, which is really a shame because these Digifusion action figures are so awesome. You take the figures and you link them together into the forms here like this. This is the Ballistamon, Darulumon, and Shoutmon. Well, not much of Shoutmon. Action figure fused together into Shoutmon Cross 4, and it looks fantastic. It's probably better than the figures they put out in Japan, which is a real shame that it didn't do so well.
And that's not the only thing. You can also make Cross 2 with Shoutmon and Ballistamon, or you can make, sort of, Cross 3 with Ballistamon and Darulumon. That is one expensive V. You can even make your own creations.
They also made a trading card game, but that kind of gets disqualified right away because they printed the rules on the back of the playmat. Who does that? Why do you do that? What if I have to look up the rules in the middle of the game? Do I just have my cards all set down there? It's like, what do I do now? Whoop! There go all my cards! It drives me nuts when companies do this. And to make matters worse, you know, this talk about smartphone games, they actually made a smartphone game that used these little cards that come with the toys, which you type onto this little smartphone program, which is little more than kind of a glorified poppin' music thing going on. But it uses the cards, you put them on your cell phone and it scans. That's actually not too bad, except there's already codes out there that lets you get all these characters for free. But I must comment that they actually did add a feature to these little cards that they can be implemented into the card game. You set a little deck of them aside and you flip the top one, and that's kind of a field effect. Both players do the action. They might draw a card or discard a card or pick up a card from their discard pile. That's not too bad a dynamic, but like I said, card game, it's not very well thought out. About as well thought out as the dub to this show. But really, the Japanese version of this series is so much better, because you still have the feel they were going for with the sort of samurai drama going on, and really it's just so much better. Please, I beg you viewers, go and watch the original on Crunchyroll. It's free, and Bandai, please put out Beelzemon and Sparamon for the Digifusion figures. These figures are so awesome, and I want to be able to complete the ones like Cross 4B, Cross 5, and Cross 5B. I just want to do that so much. Oh, and Cyberdramon too. I might as well do Metal Greymon with all that fun stuff too, but please, just let that happen. So yeah, this is an interesting little double whammy here. Well, you have the Bay Warriors series and the Bay Raiders with a Z series. This is the second time Hasbro's on the list, but they're up here mainly because of this double whammy. Hasbro has a bit of a problem in that they make additions to a lot of the series they import. Like with Beyblade in particular, they made like the Cyclone Battlers, which, you know, are kind of goofy, but at least they work with regular tops. And then they made Bay Wheels, which, like I said before, don't work. And this year, they decided to make not one, but two spin-off products. First up, we got the Bay Warriors. We got to see these in my Toy Fair video from last year, and what they are is they're basically the tops that they have a bit of a wind up here, small disc in the middle, and they have these body parts on top, which you can actually take off and change around, which is kind of interesting. But here's the thing, even though you can wind them multiple times and they get the RPMs up really high, the increased friction from the figures and the instability of it means they still won't spin for very long. Nowhere near compared to the regular Beyblades. And I mean, I get the idea, it's supposed to be the monster inside the Beyblade like bursting out to attack, but honestly, why would I buy these when I could just buy more Beyblades? That makes these things kind of stupid. Now, for the record, I do like Shogun Steel. I like the idea that you can take two of the metal discs together and combine them together into one, like, super crazy, super heavy top. I actually like that idea. That's the kind of upping the ante I like to see, but the Bay Warriors are just a huge flop. But they're not nearly as bad as the Bay Raiders. Remember the Bay Wheels I mentioned before? Those flywheel knockoffs that are both more expensive and less functional. Flywheels are like better in every other category. And remember my dream I had a while back where I had that nightmare that it was going to get a sequel? That's Bay Raiders. Before I really get into more detail, I kind of feel like Bay Wheels and Bay Raiders were kind of the Hasbro Games problem bleeding over into their other franchises. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, let me take you back a few years. Now, there's a game called Boggle. What it is you roll some dice, you set them down, there's letters on them, and you try to find words on the letters in a time limit. This game has been around for a long time. My mom has a copy of Big Boggle, which has 25 dice instead of 16, from the 1970s. So, it's hardly a new game, and when I learned that they came out with this version that had like an electronic timer and was all self-contained so you didn't lose the dice and stuff, I was excited and I went to go get it. Only I couldn't find it anywhere. Every place I called, every place I looked, they didn't have anything called Boggle. However, later I figured out why. That's because the game had been renamed Scrabble. Yeah, you know, that game with no dice, no pencils, no time limit or anything like that. That was the name they decided to give to Boggle. And Boggle, a game with no board or tiles or dictionary or rack or anything like that. Yeah, that's the thing. Hasbro Games has created, like, everything is now based on one game. Like, oh, it's got letters in it, it's automatically a Scrabble game. Oh, it's got, like, movement in it, it's obviously a Monopoly game. It's got cards in it, then it must be an Uno game. In this case, if it has spinning, must be Beyblades. I assume that's what happened with Bay Wheels and probably with Bay Raiders. So as for the Bay Raiders, what they are is they're kind of these little motorcycle car-looking things with a large wheel in the center that you wind up so that they go out and they grab these discs with the Velcro here. So, okay, let's give it a shot. Let's try it out. All right, let's try this here. Give it a rip, set it down, and whoa, whoa, whoa! They go backwards. They go backwards. What? Why do they only go backwards? That's stupid. I mean, I guess the idea is that you're supposed to use this launcher thing that's supposed to, like, slam them out and send them flying into a disc to grab it and then it comes back. I mean, that would be great if it actually worked, and it doesn't. But what the part of the fun of Beyblades is that you can use them even when you're not using them in battle. You can still launch them just to see how long they go. This thing, since it only goes backwards, you really don't get that fun. And, I mean, all it is a toy where you have this thing, you launch it out, and goes and grabs a disc and brings it back. And have we seen this before?
Denko Sekka. Compete in the ultimate.
Oh my god, Hasbro ripped off Denko Sekka. Why did they do that? They took a Speedor and Denko Sekka and mixed them together. So, folks, what we have here is not only is it a sequel to a spin-off, which flopped, but it also incorporates elements of Speedors, which flopped, and Denko Sekka, which flopped. I don't know where they thought this would go, but I guess maybe they thought the failure would be so epic that it would eventually curve around into success or something like that. But no, success doesn't work on a curve, it works on a line. And don't even get me started about the show. I tried to watch the show, I really did, but I couldn't stand it for more than a few minutes. I mean, it takes the characters from Bay Wheels, you know, those characters who were in that totally futuristic setting, completely gets rid of that setting, and then, it goes into this weird town, and then... Oh my god! What is with that guy's stomach? What? No, really, those muscles look painted on. Guys don't get abs like that. Those are girl abs. Why does this guy have girl abs? Why?
Take him away! Take him away!
How did this get made? How did this even get greenlit? It's everything done wrong. I mean, honestly, Bay Raiders are even worse than Redakai. Although, I still put Redakai even lower because Redakai was at least its own thing. It had a chance. It was its own fresh idea. It wasn't even a spiritual successor to anything. This is a sequel to a spin-off that failed. It didn't stand a chance to begin with. Which makes me wonder why they even tried. These Bay Warriors, these Bay Raiders, these Bay Wheels, these aren't what the kids want. They want the Bay Blades. You need to get some more emphasis on that. There's all this stuff in Japan that they're getting that we're not getting because Hasbro keeps wasting all their time making these other things. And that is why this is frankly the lowest of the low for my big flop list lately, because Hasbro keeps distracting themselves with things that won't sell. Although, maybe, who knows, maybe it's because they got a whole bunch of suckers, toy stores to buy their Bay Wheels that they went on with Bay Raiders, but really it's just, So yeah, those are 5 big flops, and whether it's because of an inferior TV show or a poor dub or low quality products or just everything wrong, they did not sell very well, or at least definitely not anywhere near the expectations of the companies that made them. Also, if you didn't see a product on here that was on here, then I probably have a higher opinion of it, or I just haven't heard of it yet. So I am actually kind of looking for some new things to review, some more up-to-date things, because these things, like I said before, are a little bit dated by now. But, anyways, I'm hoping I can get back more into the reviewing biz now that I have some more financial stability. I'll be able to maybe get some bigger things to review. So, until next time, this is Kohdok signing off.
so it does work. Well...